All right, I'm calling this meeting of the Downtown Partnership Finance and Finance Committee to Finance and Growth Committee, I think we're called, to order at 4:34 on December 21st, 2022. At the moment, we do not have a quorum, so we're not going to take any official action until we get one. But in the meantime, we are going to take a look at the draft 23-24 budget.
Tony, I'm sorry, would it be okay if we, by consensus, approve the meeting dates with the deadline that I have with the state? And I do have one suggested change from what I sent you. Is that okay?
Sure. What's your suggested change?
Well, I'd like to move this meeting in December back because it appears to be an issue. So I'd like to move it to December 13th in 2023. Let me just double check that that's not something. So that would be the second Wednesday instead of the third Wednesday. If you can bear with me, I just want to double check something real quick.
Are you looking December 23?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, that's which Wednesday?
The
30th.
second Wednesday, which is December 13th.
Is the second Wednesday, yeah.
So if we could, by consensus, if you're agreeable to that, and then I can get this to the town clerk.
Yes. Mario, you have any objection?
No, none whatsoever.
Mike?
No, none.
Okay. So the what we are going to approve will state December 13th, parentheses, the second Wednesday of December.
Correct. Great, thank you.
All right, that takes care of that. Now, the budget.
Yes. So let me see if I can share my screen.
I have a couple of questions about this.
Okay. Do you want me to walk through it, Tony, or do you want to ask your
No,
question?
I can be specific because we've looked at this budget at our past meeting, correct?
No, you and I went over it, but Mario and Mike have not seen it.
Oh, all right. The first thing is that both the town and the university have potentially increased their contributions from 160,000 to 175,000.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that's not reflected here.
It is under proposed, so 160 to 175.
Got it. Didn't go all the way across. Good. Okay.
And since I sent this out, Kyle has received approval from UConn CFO. Here comes Ryan.
Okay.
Do you want to ask your questions, Tony? You want me to keep going?
Yes. Look, Ryan, are we okay with the $175,000 contribution from the town?
I'm going to be building it into my budget. Ultimately, it'll be the council's decision, but it'll be part of my budget recommendations.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes, thank you. And there may be some caveats once we get to the change in our staffing too, Tony, and well, everybody. So just hold that thought.
Yes.
So then moving down to, I'm sorry, I gotta move this somewhere else. Down to the $40,000 contribution for economic development. So at this point, I have not changed that, but I did have a discussion separately with Ryan and Tony about looking at economic development staffing in general. especially vis-a-vis some of the operational duties that I have that take a lot of my time. So I have not had the bandwidth to do a thoughtful evaluation because of meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So I am going to try to look at that in January. So I don't know whether it will change for this year's or next year's budget, but I just want to sort of put that out there that there could be some changes there.
It sounds to me like with the exception of you and Kathleen, our personnel budget is somewhat up in the air right now.
Yes, and we can go into that a little more detail. So just so Mario and Ryan, I don't know if you saw your email from earlier today about Denise.
I did. It's sad, but yep.
Yeah. So Mike, Denise in our office has
Yeah.
resigned as of January 12th. So that will change. In particular, we have no healthcare budgeted for her because she gets paid, or she gets her healthcare through her husband who also works for the town of
Right.
Mansfield.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
So that's going to be, and we could talk about that when we get down here.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I have talked to Kyle about that briefly. He told me not to worry.
Okay.
So we have two of our liability and property insurance and D&O insurance. And Tony and I talked about this a little bit. I did go out and get quotes from Wilcox and Reynolds, State Farm, and Eastern. And I did confirm, Tony, there was the estimate from State Farm that was, if you see in this cell, that was so much lower for liability and property insurance. And that was an accurate quote, but they cannot quote D&O. And my preference is to do this with one carrier. It's just so much easier for me from a logistical standpoint. So I'm advising that we stick with Wilcox and Reynolds.
How could there be such a big difference in price? They must be not covering something.
Well, and I asked them because, a couple of years ago, we added event coverage at the recommendation of Wilcox and Reynolds, and I point blank asked State Farm that, and I sent them a copy of our current insurance. So they know what our coverage is now. So I don't really understand it. So, I mean, but I can, use all three different, I can use two different carriers if that's what your preference is.
It's such a huge, it's a $2,500 difference.
Yeah, I know. But I think down on workers' comp, let me just see if I can. I think they had a higher amount there, sorry. Yeah, see, State Farm quoted 2,800 for workers' comp. Whereas Wilcox and Reynolds quoted 700. So I don't know if I should have, if there's some outside person that could look at that. I just don't, I don't really know. This is not an area that I am well versed.
Ryan, do we have any mandate that we go with the cheapest? This is a 501c3 to which the town participates in. Do we have any requirement for going with lowest bidder? Ryan, are you there? I have a feeling Ryan is juggling
I
childcare.
think he is, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
not
actually in the
familiar with
checkout line right now.
Oh, geez.
Do we have a does the partnership have a mandate for a lowest bidder on things?
If that question is directed to me, I think finance does request anyway that they generally adhere to town procurement practices.
Okay, if we lump all the costs of all the insurances together, there isn't that much of a difference, right?
Correct. The main thing that they've told me is that we have to, every 3 years, we have to go out for 3 quotes. So that's what I did.
Yeah, I think, depending on the issue or the vendor, there's some flexibility there. Like if it makes sense to hold off a year, we can sometimes do that. But I think, if you've been a few years, it probably is about time.
Well,
So that's what I did.
the problem, Ryan, is that Wilcox and Reynolds quotes 3,500. State Farm quotes less than 1,000 for the same policy for property. But State Farm is more expensive than Wilcox and Reynolds on workers' comp by about $1,000, and
And they
they're
don't
about the
cover
same.
D&O.
And they don't cover D&O. So the question is, do we split our vendors, or can we go all with the same one, even though it looks like it might be more expensive?
Sorry, being a victim here of multitasking. So, one second. Stay here. So, are we saying that individually, when broken up, we're getting a better deal for individual things by breaking it up, but combined we don't? Sorry, I hate to have you
That's
repeat.
correct. That's correct, right? I'm sorry, I think that's correct, right, Tony?
More or less. I mean, I
More or
think there
less.
may be about $1,000 difference, and a convenience factor.
Right. So, I mean, per our own policies, we don't necessarily, if there are demonstrable, I guess you could say, meaningful conveniences associated with going with a single firm, carrier, whatever, and it's a nominal added expense for those conveniences, we not obligated to go with the lowest bid. There are a number of factors that go into what makes a company considered to be the most advantageous. Cost is clearly one of them, but if there are other compelling reasons and the additional fee is kind of nominal, then going with a single company would probably make more sense.
Okay. Then my recommendation is you stay where you are. Does that make you comfortable, Mario and Mike?
It does make, yes, this is Mike. Yes, it
I
does.
agree.
Okay,
Makes sense.
proceed.
Okay,
And that being Wilcox and Reynolds.
Yes.
yes, and they've been our carrier since the beginning,
Right.
actually. But we have gone
Yeah,
out a few times for other bids.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm complete agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you for your help with that one. So travel and conferences, I did jump that up to 900. Because we don't have a lot of money in there and we have gone over. So I'd like to have like at least one staff person do some sort of small conference a year. So this allows us to be able to do that. So I'm just going to hit sort of one areas where there's big changes. And then as a reminder, we pay the town for IT and finance department support, and the HR support is kind of thrown in there. So Sherry, interim director of finance, gave me a 3% increase for those two line items. So then rent, our 2-year agreement is up July 1st. So I looked at the CPI for the Northeast region under rental housing. That was what Ryan had helped me with last year. So it's a 4.8% increase, and 2 years ago it was a 2% increase. So I have built in a 4.8% increase. And as a reminder, again, we pay rent to the town for the using office space in the Nash Zimmer.
Any questions on that? Okay, continue.
Okay. So then this is probably the most significant change. So under, and this is where the main in the cell applies to all staff. So Ryan and I had a conversation, and then Tony and I had a conversation about the partnership and equity and fairness and retention of employees for some of the key items. So I had originally proposed a 2.5% essentially COLA, cost of living increase. We are not in a step system like the town is, so I went to Lee Palmer, who's serving as kind of interim director of HR, and he provided me with a step schedule. And I believe that should be a policy decision by the partnership board if they want to adopt a policy to start a step increase. But Lee did provide me with some examples, or not examples, he did like a 10-step format. And generally it's about a 2.5 to 3% range between steps. So in the interim, in terms of trying to address some of the things that Tony and Ryan brought up, and, you know, I support our staff trying to be as, you know, comparable to other entities. So this would, what I have proposed here is a 5% increase. With the caveat, well, I don't know if it's a caveat, but with a discussion about whether this is something that we want to adopt going forward. So I would suggest that it would either start with the executive committee or the governance committee over the next couple of months and go to the board so that we're prepared for FY 24-25.
You know, it might help if the finance committee made a recommendation that to the governance committee that we restructure so that we have steps for positions.
Yes. Yep. I mean, I'm sorry, it could be finance too. I'm sorry, Tony. I was just sort of thinking through. I mean, it sort of borders the line of all three of those committees.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because it does give somebody a sense that their pay will go up, and then we can do cost of living as necessary. I mean, I'm really worried. We have trouble holding on to staff, and if we don't do something about pay, we're not going to be able to hold on to staff.
So I was having some trouble getting myself off mute. I know Cynthia already mentioned some of the discussions that I was a part of, so I would just reiterate that and echo essentially what Tony was just saying. Frankly, you know, I think that even under better circumstances, more traditional rates of inflation, to point to one thing, having a step system, some merit-based increases in addition to cost of living adjustments is really something every organization needs to think about to be competitive, and certainly something the partnership should be thinking about. And that's under, I guess I would say, better, you know, or more normal rates of inflation economic circumstances. Given the period of time that we currently are in, it's doubly, you know, important that the partnership do what it needs to do to stay competitive. And I don't know anything about Denise's situation and what kind of prompted her shift or her taking another job. I don't want to speak to that because I don't know the circumstances, but you know, certainly economic considerations, you know, could be a part of that. And we want to recruit and retain the best people. The town does, and I know the partnership does as well.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. So this is talking for raises here, and this is going to be, you're talking COLA. I don't know what it was this past year, 8-something%. Is that right?
No, 2.5.
It was 2. Okay. And you're saying,
Wait a minute,
so where did the 5?
You're talking about,
Where did,
Mike, wait a minute. The 2% increase was the cost of living increase. You're talking about the national cost of living increase?
Right.
One up to,
Right.
Yeah, 8.
Yeah. And you're saying where did the number 5 come from? Did
So
somebody
what I
say
did,
5%?
Mike, is
Okay.
I took a 2.5% COLA, and that's sort of
Right.
what we did last year. And then I
Yeah.
added a 2.5% quote step increase. And again, we don't have a policy yet, but this would be the idea.
Right.
So that would be the
Okay.
5% total increase for each staff member.
So in essence, we're talking about doubling up on the amount of increase that would have typically been the case during, you know, a more traditional COLA adjustment in the absence of a step. But it's important to remember that while 5% is an ambitious increase, given the partnership's
It is.
history, it's happening when there's a backdrop of like 8% inflation overall. So it's not that it's even really keeping up, it's just falling less behind in a sense.
Was that directed to me? Is that what the answer you mean?
Well, I was just,
Hello?
yeah, I mean, I guess for the
Yeah.
group's
Oh, okay.
consideration, I guess that's how I was directing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just curious, everybody, all platitudes, we want to always hire the best and the brightest. Is it difficult finding people though?
It's difficult
I don't know if
holding people. It's difficult holding people, Mike. We've had turnover in this
Yeah.
position about every 18 months on average over the last couple of years.
Well, let's just, so
Okay.
just to clarify, Tony, so Denise has been here almost 4 years.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
So
Right. No, I
Pandemic
know.
years.
it's
Yeah.
not quite as bad, but prior to that, yes, we had, but we also, it was not a full-time position until Denise started.
Right.
And that was one of the
Right.
things I think that you promoted, Tony, was
Yes.
to make this a full-time position because 30 hours, we were having difficulty keeping people. So, I mean, you have had me for 20 and Kathleen for 15 for what it's worth.
No, I know. It's where does the time go? But
But I
still,
hear what Tony's saying for sure.
Yeah, no,
yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Not to make it a full-time position and so forth, but you know how these things work, and there's starting to be a lot of layoffs and everything else, and I don't know if they ever adjust people's pay down so much. So it's expensive. I mean, geez, we go through it here too, trying to hire people. It's tough, but well, I can see. Okay, you're not saying the 8% increase or whatever, but I mean, this kind of makes sense. I guess it's a starting point, is what we're saying.
it's the first
You know, the
step
two-
in
Right.
changing our policy about salary schedules to
Okay.
it would reflect the institution of a 10-year step program, which we've never had in these positions.
Okay. Right. And yeah, because these positions sound pretty good, to tell you the truth. So, and I guess I don't know down that way, trying to find help how it is these days. I really don't. I just, anyway, I'm on board. It sounds reasonable for sure. And you're a heck of a lot more aware of what's going on down there as far as trying to recruit people.
Well, municipalities and state governments are having a really hard time hiring. And that's true across the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding it hard, what, entry level?
All levels.
Everything. I can't tell you how many people are looking for planning folks, not just in just planning and economic development positions from my colleagues have been really, really hard to find.
We're doing
Yeah,
recruitments
yeah.
from entry level to mid-career to department head. And it's
Yeah.
not that we're not getting applicants, but we frankly are getting a fraction of the number of applicants. And then the applicants we get, you kind of
Yeah.
find yourself trying to get yourself excited about an applicant pool that usually would be far more robust.
I'm not questioning that. You would hope there would be. Well, I don't know. There's something's rotten in Denmark, and I don't know what it is. It's not you. It's not. It's just the whole damn system here lately, if you ask me. But that's my 2 cents. But anyway, that's okay. I'm just kind of taking it in. I'm just curious with the whole procedure, the whole system now. So anyway,
Well, I'll tell you, it's so bad. It's so bad, Mike, that CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, is starting a real
Right.
initiative to encourage young people to go into government service because they just aren't.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm not aware of it. So I'm not calling you into question. It's like I'm just not aware of it, and I don't know which news station I listen to, but who knows here lately. So,
Oh, it's not being covered by the news. This is one of those things.
No, I know.
Doesn't get covered.
Yeah. Right. Jeez, oh man. Okay. Well, I've learned something, so thank you. It's good. All right. So, it sounds reasonable. I mean, I'm not saying it was ever outlandish. It's just I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. So.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, yeah.
You want me to keep moving through, Tony? And
Yes, please.
okay.
Sorry about, yeah,
No, this is why the committee meets.
yeah.
So we're going down to healthcare. So this is where we've got a bit of an issue. So Sherry had told me to budget for a 12% increase. So as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, this is the issue right here. So I did not budget, and I think I mentioned it in an email I sent to somebody that, you know, obviously I didn't know till this morning that Denise was leaving. So she's covered under her husband. So if this was going to be, for instance, so Kathleen and her husband are covered. So that's why it's double here. So if you look at my coverage and you add so you put 10 in there, let's just say, that will leave us with a deficit budget. So the question is, do I try to cut by about 5,000? And we can talk about that after I finish going through this, Tony, if that makes sense, if you want me to go through the whole thing.
Well, this is complicated by the fact that we aren't going to fill this position right away. So we're going to be saving some money.
We will be saving some money. So we've got an FY 22-23 issue, and we've got an FY 23-24 issue.
Yes.
Do you want me to keep going and then we can chat? once
Yeah,
Yeah, keep going.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so because we did add some new items, based on the feedback from, or so the recommendation, the strategic action plan. So, we added in 10,000 for some event seed money so that, the staff team is not spending quite as much money trying to raise money for our events. We will still have to do that. But this helps us out a little. So we're spending less time running around, raising money. So initially we had this at 15 and Tony and I worked this through to bring it down to 10. I also have which was in our strategic plan, the new CRM, which is, I'm not gonna remember what that stands for, but tracks our members, tracks our board, tracks our donors. And that was a recommendation from the strategic action plan. So Josh and I have been interviewing different teams. We interviewed our last one today. And so we should have a recommendation in January or February to start that July 1st. And I do think at this point, it's something that would be very helpful for us. We're using Excel spreadsheets and it doesn't track things the way we really want to establish who our donors have been by name, et cetera, et cetera. So then going down to marketing, we also increased that a couple of $1,000s. We're right now getting MailChimp for free. We want to keep expanding that database, which is what Kathleen uses for all our business digest newsletter, the updates that she does almost weekly on events. So that's an additional cost. It's actually, she told me, originally we thought it was 400, it's actually 700. So she's looking at not doing Hootsuite, which is a social media management tool. So, we just want to try to increase our marketing tools that we have. We're still pretty rudimentary. So that was an additional cost there. And then printing and binding. I added that to fulfill some of the strategies in the strategic action plan to try to get more materials out there to promote the downtown. Let's see. And then other program expenses. We don't have a budget for candy for trick or treat. I know it sounds minor, but this is the kind of thing that I would probably go out and I have bought it myself, and that's really not what I should be doing. Just to be blunt.
Who distributes the candy from the downtown partnership?
This year it was one of our board members, Brian did it, Coleman.
Okay, so it's just for us. It's not.
Yeah,
for the
no, we
other
don't buy it
stores.
for the, no, we don't buy it for the
Okay.
businesses. No, this is for us to have a presence and. So that's one example. The socials that we did this year, I think, we're gonna continue to build on that, but we have paid for that without really having a budget for it. We've gotten a lot of donations and between our board members and others, but there is a cost to that. And so I think we just need to recognize that if we're gonna continue to use that tool, we need to budget for it. Let's see, copy maintenance. Oh, and I did want to go back. Was that back here? Where was that? Somewhere in here, we have to pay a fee for our security system. So we have a fob now. So the town paid for putting the fob system in, but we have a quarterly cost to that. And it's in here some, oh, here it is right here. So $420 a year. So $420 a year doesn't sound like a lot, but for the size of our budget, it's, it's significant enough. And then I added back in, like Kathleen needs a new chair. We have a lot of our furniture is either secondhand or some of our bookcase. And I'm not saying we're going to replace that, but we need to recognize that, having a chair that's 15 years old can be replaced. So kind of getting back to the issue and in terms of trying to make up for the deficit, if we're going to put money in for one employee for health insurance for the event coordinator position, we do have, and I should have mentioned this, we do have the contingency that we have in here. And that would probably cover our deficit, which would end up being, I think it's about $4,000. So we would come close to breaking even. We'd probably be a little bit under, so I could probably take off $100 here, $100 there to make up for now that healthcare costs. Because this is where this is the balance that we would have with the budget. Now, we have a very healthy fund balance, but we've sort of taken the tack that we're not trying to fund our operations through our fund balance.
Could you go to the next page, please?
Yep.
Wait, stop right there.
Okay.
Cumulative fund balance at the end of July 23. Why is it only $7,000 when a year ago was $355,000?
So yes, something is wrong there.
Okay, good.
Sorry, Tony. I don't know. I must have done a wrong formula here. Let me go look at that. So thanks for flagging that.
Because you do show that our revenues are still higher than our expenditures, so that was very bothersome.
Yeah, I did something there wrong. Let me look at that again. Sorry about that.
Well, as long as you correct it before it goes to the board, whatever it is.
Yep. So I guess I could use some direction on whether, well, I guess there's a couple of questions. Do we want to zero the contingency out as an expense that would help our bottom line? Do you want me to sort of pull some money back on a couple of items that we increased? Or I know we've already gotten sign off from UConn on the $15,000 increase. Do we go back and increase that? Or we could also bring this line back up. So we brought in 16,000 last year. I was being pretty conservative because I think I mentioned either to the board or to finance that, we had a couple people give us sort of one-time $500 increases that we didn't expect. But we can sort of, with our sustainability funding working group, we can kind of beat the bushes on that one and try to increase there. And I can do a combination of things.
My recommendation would be to do a combination of things to see how close you could get to the $10,000. I think reducing the salary line for the event coordinator wouldn't be a bad idea either for this year, because we know Oh, no, this is all gonna start in July of 22. It could be the full price in July.
Yeah, and if we're trying to recruit people,
Yeah, yeah, of course. We're a long way from July 1st. Uh, well, we'll have a bigger balance left over from this year if we don't fill the position for a month or two.
true. Yep.
But it's not sustainable in the long run,
Well, and if I increase Josh's hours,
right?
that will take some of that away. I mean, he's at a much lower, well, not much, but he's at a lower per hour rate. But he's agreed to potentially do 4 to 5 hours more. I just feel like Kathleen and I could really use that help, and he's capable of doing, some more things for us. Sorry. Mr. Str-
Hey, Cynthia. So
Yeah,
sorry, 'cause
right.
I think being a bit preoccupied, I'm sure I missed key context here, but I guess if I'm understanding the situation correctly, the partnership does have a healthy fund balance. I fully agree with the philosophy that that operating expenses, are not really how you want to use your fund balance in terms of plugging holes. However, I do think that if you're in a very healthy fund balance situation, as a quote unquote one-time unexpected emergency relief, whatever you want to call it, measure, I don't think it's really necessarily in this case problematic to consider leveraging some of that, given how healthy it is. Even if it's an operating budget expense we're talking about. That's how I guess I would view this. Even if generally speaking, as a mode of operation, you're not using your fund balance to cover your operating expenses.
So if Cynthia, if you're gonna tweak this in a number of ways, we
Mhm.
should see the final tweak before we recommend it to the board.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it doesn't need to go to the board
Yeah.
until April or so. My timeline is getting it into the town system, which is January 17th. That's why we're always so early. So we could either try to meet, or I could let you guys know by email how we're, what the recommendations are to at least get it in the town system. And I think, and Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong, I usually have a little leeway after it goes in there to make some tweaks.
I think you have quite a bit of leeway
Correct.
before submitting it, actually, as well as leeway for tweaking.
Yep.
Ryan, am I wrong? If this budget doesn't get to the town until February, what kind of a crisis does it create?
It doesn't really create any problem from the town standpoint because, I don't know, Cynthia, if you'll remember when we did our budget kickoff with department heads earlier in the week, but the calendar that Sherry and I put together, that Sherry presented, basically the internal working deadline for bottom line budgets for all departments, as reflected in what will be my recommended budget, is not actually until the end of February. So basically, I would say it's not a problem at all from the town standpoint if the partnership is still making adjustments in its budget, halfway into February.
So we could certainly review a tweaked budget in January with a recommendation to go to the board at the end of January
Or the beginning of February.
or the beginning of
Yeah.
February.
Right.
So Ryan, just to be crystal clear on my end, so do you want me to then not put anything in except for my budget narrative by the 17th and just let Sherry and Alicia know that this is what we're doing? Or I'm doing? Or would you rather me put something in there as like a placeholder?
I would say put something as a placeholder, and then we just know that it's subject to change for a variety of valid reasons. I think I would rather do that than just have an empty space to fill.
Okay. All right, I will do that probably based on what I'm recommending to you all, just so it. Yeah, but I can manage it all. I've had to do this before, so, All right, so I'll look at a couple of changes, but also with what Ryan said in mind, so. See where we can end up.
Good. Anything more you need on this document?
I don't think so. This was really, really helpful. Thank you for, and I really want to thank everybody for being so supportive. Yeah, it's Denise's position is an important position, and we need to find a good person for it because we continue to want to do more events, and I appreciate all the support for the salary increases.
Okay, I have lost access to the agenda, so I don't know what comes next. Can you?
I think if we can do the minutes since Ryan's here, since there's 4 of you, that would be
Okay.
great.
All right, so we need a motion to approve the minutes that are on the agenda for tonight. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Mario
Yeah, I
moves.
make 'em.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mike, are you seconding?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, any
Can
comments or
I
corrections?
second it?
Sure. Any comments or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
objections? Minutes passed unanimously.
I'm sorry, Tony, I was just checking the chat because I'd seen it. So was that Mario that made the motion?
Mario and Mike.
Yep.
I got Mike. Okay. Great. So the only other thing was just an update, the sort of standing agenda item with update on the strategic action plan in downtown stores.
Yep.
So the, I'm trying to remember now, I don't think I've let you guys know. So Fresh Fork is closed.
Really?
Yeah, so I did hear back from the property owner, and the owner needed to take over his father's business. So, but they do have a new tenant coming in, a restaurant, in the next couple of weeks. So Manny Hayes, the property owner, is supposed to let me know details. That's about all I know right now.
Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, it really is. It
Yeah.
really is. And then
Wait, what was it?
Chase,
What was it closed? I'm sorry.
so, excuse
What-
me. I'm sorry.
Matthew,
So it's Fresh Fork,
Uh-huh.
Mike,
Okay.
it's in the DP Doe building,
Yeah.
1232 Stores Road. So they did kind of vegan, vegetarian salad.
Right, yep. Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't hear you. I got
Yeah.
it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, okay.
That's okay. So speaking of staffing issues, so my understanding is that Chase Bank will not open until March. And basically the fit out is done, but it's a staffing issue. So I think that's all that's definite at this point to report. I did attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Monday night where they had the discussion about the potential Chipotle at the corner of South Eagleville and 195, the pre-application. So, and I will update the board on that when I send out the board packet, but there were some questions about traffic, some questions about access. So I think that they're going to look at some of the questions and then, we'll see if presumably they would submit an application at some point, permit application because they need to change the zoning there too.
Is this the land that, is where the Brown House is?
No, so
Mhm.
this is the land that's right in front of the Mansfield Apartments that Store Center Alliance, so our old friends
Right.
Howard and Lou own. Well, actually, they're under contract with UConn. So it would need to change from institutional to some type of probably planned business too, I think is the zone. So that's kind of the first step.
And UConn is, they own the land already or they have an option on it?
They own it, but they have an option on it, but they, according to Howard Kaufman, they are under contract.
Okay,
So, you know, I can I'll update the board at our board meeting as well.
Has there been any more discussion on Grill 86?
No, and I asked, I asked the property owner again this week, and he said they're still negotiating, so I think you can hear my
Hmm.
little bit of frustration. So, you know, this was something that seemed to be imminent, but apparently not, so. So there was, Mike, just to catch you up, there was the thought that there was somebody that would be going into that space, and so we're still
Yeah.
waiting to hear.
Okay, keep
um,
your fingers crossed. Okay,
Right,
here's
yeah.
a piece of good news. I have friends who had dinner at the new Sticks and Stones Market Restaurant, which is the fancy Italian restaurant, and they said the food was wonderful.
that's great.
This,
Yeah, that's really good.
where is that?
That's really nice.
Where is it?
It's
Is it?
the little restaurant on the top of Spring Hill. Not
Oh,
the
okay,
inn,
okay.
not the inn, but
Yep,
the,
yep.
the place where there's a nursery and a flower shop and a restaurant.
Yeah, no, my sister was just telling me about it. Said it was great. So, okay, now I know what she's talking about. So,
All right, anything else for the good of the order? Well, this is not a formal meeting since we don't have a quorum, so we don't need a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait a minute, we do
No,
have
we have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We
Yeah,
need
yeah.
a motion to adjourn. Does somebody wish to
make a motion to adjourn.
Mike, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mario. All right, all those in favor of adjourning, have a Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate, and please be safe, stay healthy, stay warm, whatever else you need to do.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy
Merry-
everything.
Same to everybody. Yeah.
Take
care.
care.
So,
Be safe Friday.
Yeah.
Take care.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Cindy, I try to call you on the outside here, perhaps this next week or something.
Yeah, I'm out next week, Mike, but if you want to call me the week after, I'll be here.
Okay, perfect. So, all righty.
Take care,
Yep,
Mike.
thanks, everybody. Yep,
All right.
thanks, everybody. Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye.